Listen to me carefully. I have an urgent and powerful message to share today, and this message is not for everyone. This is only for God's chosen ones. If you are not walking the divine path, if you are not serious about God, if you are only here out of curiosity, then this message is not meant for you. You can leave now. But if you are a true follower of God, if you feel a deep pull towards spiritual truth, if you have always sensed that your life has a higher purpose, then stay with me. This message has reached you at the exact right moment, not early, not late. God arranged this. Chosen one, God is serious when he says this. You must stop looking for jobs. This is not a metaphor. This is not motivational talk. This is a direct, divine instruction. And I know this may shock you, confuse you, or even scare you a little. But by the end of this message, everything will begin to make sense. You will feel lighter. You will feel seen. You will understand why nothing has been working the way you expected. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to reveal may completely change how you see your struggle, your waiting, and your purpose. Before we continue, chosen ones, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones who need this confirmation. And comment 777 in the comments to declare that you are aligned with God's will and ready to receive His direction. Why this message is reaching you now, Divine Timing explained. Chosen one, let me tell you something with clarity and calm authority. This message is reaching you now because you are ready, not because you searched for it, not because an algorithm favored you, but because your spirit has entered a moment of divine timing. God does not speak randomly. Heaven does not interrupt your life without reason. When a message like this lands in front of you, especially when your mind has been restless, when your heart has been tired, when your prayers have felt unanswered, that is not coincidence. That is alignment. You may have noticed that lately things have felt heavy, not dramatic, not chaotic, just quietly exhausting. You've been doing what you were taught to do, applying, waiting, hoping, repeating the same cycle. And yet something inside you has felt off. A tension you couldn't explain. A feeling that you were forcing yourself into places that did not fit your soul. That is not laziness. That is not lack of ambition. That is spiritual friction. That is your spirit resisting a direction that no longer serves God's plan for you. God allows seasons of discomfort to get your attention. He does not always shout. Sometimes He withdraws momentum. Sometimes He lets doors remain closed longer than expected. Sometimes He allows silence, not to punish you, but to slow you down, because chosen ones tend to move too fast when fear is driving, and fear has been loud lately. Fear of lack, fear of time running out, fear of being left behind. God sees that fear, and He steps in before it turns into desperation. This message is reaching you now because you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to more striving, more proving, more exhaustion. The other path leads to trust, alignment, and divine provision. God knows that if He does not intervene now, you may accept something simply to survive, not because it is right. And survival decisions can delay destiny. God is not angry with you. He is protective over you. You see, chosen ones often experience delays that look like rejection, but those delays are actually insulation. God insulates His people before exposure. He covers before He elevates. And right now, you are in a covered season. That's why progress feels slow. That's why nothing is sticking. That's why even when something almost works out, it falls apart at the last moment. God is filtering paths. He is narrowing options. He is removing noise so you can finally hear Him clearly. This message is also reaching you now because you have outgrown certain systems. Systems that reward conformity. Systems that value output more than obedience. Systems that drain your spiritual sensitivity. God knows that if you remain too long in environments that do not honor your calling, you will start to shrink yourself. You will dim discernment. You will silence conviction just to fit in. And God will not allow that. Not for you. Timing matters to God. He speaks when your heart is soft enough to receive correction without rebellion. A year ago, you may have ignored this message. 6 months ago, you may have resisted it. But now, something is different. You're listening. You're tired of pretending everything is fine. You're open, and that openness is sacred. Let me say this clearly. God is not saying you will never work again. He is not saying provision will disappear. He is saying pause. Stop running. Stop chasing. Stop trying to secure your future without Him. This pause is not punishment, it is preparation, and preparation always feels uncomfortable because it requires surrender. There is also something else. This message is reaching you now because God is shifting how He provides for you. Up until now, you have relied on familiar methods, predictable routes, human approval. But God is about to introduce a new way of sustenance, one that requires faith instead of force. And faith cannot operate in panic. That's why God is calming you first. You may feel behind compared to others, but comparison is irrelevant when you are called. God does not measure your life by the same timeline as everyone else. He measures it by obedience. And right now, obedience looks like stillness. It looks like listening. It looks like trusting God even when logic is uncomfortable. This message is not here to scare you. It is here to settle you, to remind you that you are not forgotten. You are not stuck. You are not failing. You are being redirected. And redirection always happens before revelation. So breathe. Let your shoulders relax. You are exactly where God needs you to be to hear this. And the fact that you are still watching tells me everything I need to know. God has your attention now. And that is where transformation begins. Why God is telling you to stop looking for jobs. Spiritual reasoning. Chosen one, I want you to listen without fear and without resistance. What I am about to explain is not meant to strip you of security, but to restore your authority. When God tells you to stop looking for jobs, He is not attacking your work ethic. He is confronting a system that was never designed to sustain your calling. You were taught that survival comes from striving, that worth comes from productivity, that provision comes from permission granted by institutions. But God did not create chosen ones to live by borrowed validation. There is a difference between work and assignment. A job pays you for time. An assignment aligns you with purpose. Jobs answer to managers. Assignments answer to God. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Many chosen ones are exhausted not because they work too hard, but because they are working in places that contradict who they are becoming. Your spirit knows when you are out of alignment, even when your mind tries to justify it. God is telling you to stop looking for jobs because every time you apply from a place of fear, you are agreeing with lack. Fear-driven effort invites delay. It places your future in human hands instead of divine order. And God will not compete with fear. He will interrupt it. That interruption feels like stagnation, but it is actually protection. Let me speak plainly. The systems of this world reward obedience to structure, not obedience to God. They reward silence over truth, compliance over conviction. Chosen ones do not thrive in environments where discernment must be muted to survive. Over time, these environments dull your sensitivity. You start ignoring nudges. You start compromising values. You begin shrinking your calling to fit your paycheck. God sees this happening long before you do, and He steps in. God is also telling you to stop looking for jobs because you are not meant to be managed in the traditional sense. You are meant to be guided. There is a difference. Management controls output. Guidance develops wisdom. Many of you have felt tension with authority figures not because you are rebellious, but because your spirit does not respond well to micromanagement that lacks spiritual vision. God placed leadership, creativity, and discernment inside you, and those gifts suffocate under rigid systems. Now hear this carefully. When God says stop, it does not mean be idle. It means stop chasing what He has not assigned. There is a kind of effort that is holy, and there is a kind of effort that is panic. Panic effort looks like applying everywhere, accepting anything, overlooking red flags, convincing yourself that discomfort is normal. God is cutting off panic effort because it delays clarity. Another reason God is telling you to stop is because He is severing your dependence on external approval. Jobs often become identity. Titles become worth. Salaries become security. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin measuring your life by numbers instead of obedience. God wants to detox you from that mindset, not because money is evil, but because misplaced trust is dangerous. Chosen one, you were never meant to beg systems for permission to live. You were meant to steward what God placed in you, but stewardship requires stillness first. You cannot hear assignment while chasing stability. God is teaching you to trust Him as source, not systems as source, and until that lesson settles, provision will feel blocked. Not because God is withholding, but because He is realigning your dependence. There is also a deeper layer. Some of you are being prepared for unconventional paths, paths that do not come with clear instructions or predictable outcomes. Paths that require discernment over resumes, faith over references, obedience over benefits packages. And God knows that if you remain in job hunting mode, you will miss the door He is about to open because it will not look like what you expect. Let me say something that may challenge you. Not every opportunity is a blessing. Some opportunities are distractions dressed as provision. They pay you just enough to keep you from listening. They occupy you just enough to delay obedience. God removes those options not to punish you, but to preserve your future impact. God is serious about this because He sees what you cannot see yet. He sees where you are going. He sees the influence, the reach, the responsibility attached to your calling, and He knows that the wrong environment can damage you before you ever arrive. So He blocks, He delays, He frustrates your plans. And yes, it feels unfair in the moment, but later it will feel merciful. You may be wondering, why now? Why not later? Because you are close. Close to breakthrough, close to clarity, close to stepping into something that requires a clean break from old thinking. God often removes the familiar before introducing the new, not to leave you empty, but to make room. This instruction is also about trust. God wants to know if you will listen even when the instruction challenges logic. Faith is not proven when things make sense. Faith is proven when obedience costs comfort. And God is watching how you respond to this pause, not with condemnation, but with care. Let me calm your heart here. God is not asking you to be reckless. He is asking you to be receptive. There is a difference. He is not saying quit everything blindly. He is saying stop chasing what He is not in. Stop knocking on doors He has already closed. Stop exhausting yourself trying to secure a future He has already planned. Chosen one, when God says stop, it is often because He is about to speak. But you cannot hear direction while running. You cannot receive instruction while panicking. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is strength under control. This is spiritual reasoning, not motivational advice. God is serious because your next season requires clarity, not clutter, alignment, not anxiety. And the sooner you release the need to control outcomes, the sooner you will see why this pause was necessary. You are not being sidelined. You are being repositioned. And repositioning always begins with a stop. The hidden pattern you may have missed. Signs God already blocked jobs. Chosen one, let us slow down for a moment. I want you to look back, not with frustration, not with regret, but with spiritual awareness. Because there is a pattern in your life that you may have misunderstood. What you called bad luck, rejection, or wasted time was often God stepping in quietly. God rarely blocks loudly. He blocks subtly. And because you were emotionally invested, you may have missed what He was doing. Think about the jobs you almost had, the interviews that felt promising, the conversations that sounded like confirmation, and then, suddenly, nothing. No callback, no explanation, or the position vanished altogether. That was not randomness. That was restraint. God stopping something before it could attach itself to you. Because attachment is powerful. Once you settle into a place, it becomes harder to leave, even when your spirit is uncomfortable. Some of you experienced offers that looked good on paper but felt heavy in your chest. You tried to convince yourself that discomfort was normal, that everyone hates their job, that this was just how life works. But deep down, you knew something was off. God speaks through peace, and when peace is absent, He does not expect you to ignore it. He expects you to listen. Others of you did get the job. You started. You showed up. You tried your best. And yet, from the very beginning, resistance followed you. Conflict without cause. Favor that disappeared overnight. Exhaustion that felt deeper than physical. That was not weakness. That was misalignment. God will allow you to experience enough discomfort to get your attention, but He will not let it destroy you. So He pulls you out, sometimes gently, sometimes abruptly. Look at how certain doors closed right when you thought you needed them the most, right when your bank account was low, right when pressure was high. That timing confused you. You asked, God, why now? But God was saying, because if you stay, you will settle. And settling is dangerous for someone with your calling. There is also the pattern of delay, applications that went nowhere, messages unanswered, processes that dragged on endlessly. You did everything right, followed up, stayed professional. And still, silence. That silence was not neglect, it was redirection. God often uses delay when He does not want to expose you to something prematurely. He knows that frustration can push you into agreement with things you would normally reject. Some of you noticed a repeating cycle. New job, initial hope, gradual dissatisfaction, emotional drain, exit, and then the cycle starts again. That cycle is not failure, it is information. It is God showing you that the pattern will continue until the root changes. And the root is not effort, it is alignment. Another sign you may have missed is how often you felt drained outside of work. Even on days off, your mind could not rest. You carried work stress into your sleep. Your creativity dimmed, your spiritual sensitivity dulled. That is what happens when your environment consumes more than it gives. God does not design work to rob you of life. He designs it to flow from life. Some of you were protected from toxic environments without realizing it. You were rejected from places that later revealed corruption, instability, or unethical practices. At the time, it hurt. But later, you saw the truth. God saved you from damage you did not have the capacity to recover from then. Protection does not always feel kind in the moment, but it is always intentional. You may also recall moments when you felt an inner resistance to applying for certain roles. Something in you hesitated. You ignored it. You applied anyway. And those were often the applications that led nowhere or caused stress. That inner resistance was discernment, God speaking before your mind caught up. Chosen ones often feel before they understand. There were also moments when opportunities appeared suddenly and then disappeared just as fast. Those moments were tests of discernment, tests of attachment. God showing you how quickly you cling to relief when pressure is high. He was teaching you to hold things loosely, to trust Him more than outcomes. This pattern is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to educate you. God has been consistent. He has been guiding you away from paths that would delay your growth. But because guidance does not always look like success, you may have misinterpreted it as failure. Let me be clear. If God truly wanted you in those roles, no human could have stopped it. No delay, no rejection, no confusion. What God ordains cannot be blocked. So if it was blocked, it was not ordained. Chosen one, the reason this message resonates is because your spirit recognizes the truth in it. You are not imagining these patterns. You are not cursed. You are not unlucky. You are being guided, redirected, protected. Once you see the pattern, you stop fighting it. You stop blaming yourself. You stop chasing what resists you, and you begin asking a better question. God, what are you steering me toward? That question changes everything. And here is the part most people never realize until much later. God was not only blocking jobs, He was also preserving you internally. Every rejection kept you from internalizing an identity that would have slowly eroded your confidence. Some environments would have trained you to doubt yourself, to shrink your voice, to normalize disrespect, to accept being overlooked. God knew your sensitivity. He knew your heart. He knew how deeply words affect you, so He intervened. There were also moments when you felt relief after a door closed, even though you were confused. That relief was not relief from effort. It was relief from danger. Your spirit knew you escaped something misaligned, even when your mind was still worried about money or stability. Peace does not lie. It shows up quietly, but it tells the truth. Think about how often you were forced to pause. Unexpected gaps. Time that felt unproductive. Moments where you had no choice but to sit with yourself. Those pauses were uncomfortable, yes, but they were also refining. God was stripping you of noise, teaching you discernment, teaching you how to hear Him without distraction, teaching you how to survive without constant motion. Some of you were saved from environments that would have hardened you, places where compassion is weakness, where ethics are optional, where survival demands silence. God knows that once you harden, it becomes difficult to return to softness, and your softness is not weakness, it is spiritual strength. Chosen one, when you connect all these moments, you begin to see the pattern clearly. God has been hands-on in your journey, not distant, not passive, actively involved, closing, redirecting, interrupting, protecting, preparing. And now that you can see it, you no longer need to panic when things stop working. You understand that when God blocks a path, it is not the end, it is guidance, and guidance always leads somewhere higher. What God is actually preparing you for, divine work versus human work. Chosen one, this is where your understanding must shift. If you only see preparation as training for a job, you will miss what God is doing in you right now. God is not preparing you for human work alone. He is preparing you for divine work. And divine work does not operate by the same rules, timelines, or measurements as human systems. Human work asks, what can you produce? Divine work asks, who are you becoming? Human work values speed, output, and compliance. Divine work values depth, integrity, and obedience. And the reason this season feels slow is because God is working beneath the surface. He is not upgrading your resume. He is refining your discernment. He is not expanding your network yet. He is strengthening your inner authority. You see, divine work requires a level of clarity that cannot be rushed. If God were to elevate you too quickly, without inner stability, the weight of responsibility would crush you. Influence without identity leads to burnout. Visibility without grounding leads to compromise. God loves you too much to place you in positions you are not yet anchored enough to sustain. Right now, God is training you to hear Him without external validation. When the noise is removed, when schedules are empty, when your worth is no longer reinforced by productivity, you are forced to confront who you are without applause. That is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Divine work flows from identity, not achievement. God is also healing you in ways you may not recognize yet. He is healing your relationship with effort. Many chosen ones equate rest with laziness because they were conditioned to earn peace. God is unteaching that. He is showing you that rest is not a reward, it is a requirement. Without rest, discernment weakens. And without discernment, divine work becomes distorted. Another thing God is preparing you for is responsibility beyond yourself. Divine work impacts people. It influences hearts. It carries spiritual weight. God will not place that weight on someone who has not learned how to carry stillness, humility, and obedience. This season is teaching you restraint, teaching you patience, teaching you how to respond instead of react. Human work often allows you to hide behind tasks. Divine work exposes you. It requires emotional honesty, spiritual maturity, accountability before God. That is why God often removes distractions before commissioning. He wants your attention undivided. He wants your motives clear. He wants your heart clean. Some of you are being prepared for leadership, even if you do not see it yet. Leadership in God's kingdom does not begin with authority over others. It begins with mastery over self. If you cannot manage your emotions in obscurity, you will mishandle influence in visibility. God is shaping your character now, in private, where mistakes are less costly. God is also expanding your capacity to trust Him. Divine work often requires stepping into uncertainty. You will be asked to move without full information. to speak without full confirmation, to obey without guarantees. That level of trust cannot be developed in environments where everything is predictable. So God removes predictability. He allows discomfort, not to harm you, but to grow your faith muscles. You may notice that your desires are changing. What once excited you feels empty. What once felt important feels shallow. That is not depression. That is refinement. God is recalibrating your values, aligning your desires with your assignment, making you less impressed by surface success and more drawn to substance. Divine work also requires emotional intelligence. God is teaching you how to sit with discomfort without escaping it, how to process disappointment without bitterness, how to wait without becoming cynical. These are not small lessons. They are foundational. Without them, divine work becomes contaminated by unresolved pain. Some of you are being prepared to create rather than conform, to build rather than maintain, to initiate rather than follow. That requires vision, and vision develops in silence, in reflection, in seasons where you are not busy reacting to external demands. God is giving you space to see clearly. Let me say this gently but firmly. If you rush back into human work just to feel useful, you may delay divine work that requires your full attention. God is not against you working. He is against you settling. He is against you numbing your calling with busyness. Divine work often does not look impressive at first. It may begin as an idea, a burden, a quiet pull, a skill you keep returning to, a message you feel compelled to share. Pay attention to what keeps resurfacing in your heart when you are still. That is where God is speaking. This season is also teaching you stewardship, how to manage time without external structure, how to stay disciplined without supervision, how to remain faithful when no one is watching. Divine work demands internal accountability. God is observing how you handle freedom before He increases responsibility. You may feel unseen right now, but you are not ignored. God does His deepest work in hidden places. Roots grow underground before trees are visible. If you dig up the seed too early, you kill the process. Trust the unseen work. Human work often defines success by recognition. Divine work defines success by obedience. And obedience is rarely glamorous. It is quiet, it is consistent, it is often misunderstood, but it is powerful. Chosen one, God is preparing you for work that aligns with who you truly are, not who you learned to be to survive. He is removing the pressure to perform and replacing it with the call to be present. This preparation is not wasted time, it is sacred time. And when the moment comes when God releases you into what He has been shaping you for, you will understand why this season was necessary. You will look back and see that nothing was delayed, everything was aligned. What feels like waiting is actually becoming. And there is one more layer to this preparation that many chosen ones overlook. God is also preparing your voice, not just what you say, but how you say it. Divine work requires discernment in speech, timing in expression, wisdom in delivery. If God were to release you too early, you might speak from pain instead of purpose, from frustration instead of authority. So He quiets you first. He teaches you to listen more than you speak. During this season, you may find yourself reflecting more, journaling, praying differently, questioning old beliefs. That is not confusion. That is clarification. God is aligning your thoughts with truth so that when you do speak, your words carry weight. Divine work is not loud for attention. It is clear with intention. God is also teaching you boundaries. Human work often blurs them. It consumes your time, your energy, your emotional space. Divine work requires you to know when to engage and when to withdraw, when to give and when to rest. This season is sharpening that awareness. You are learning to honor your limits without guilt. Some of you are being prepared to walk alone for a time, not because you are isolated, but because clarity often comes in solitude. God removes voices that confuse you so you can recognize His. That loneliness you feel at times is not abandonment. It is focus. And finally, God is preparing your humility. Not humiliation. Humility. The quiet confidence that comes from knowing your source. Divine work cannot be sustained by ego. It must be carried by surrender. God is stripping away the need to prove yourself so that when He moves through you, the glory is clear. This is sacred preparation, and once you understand that, you stop resisting the season. You begin honoring it. What you must do instead of job hunting, spiritual alignment actions. Chosen one, now we move from understanding to action. Not frantic action, not panic-driven effort, but aligned action. When God tells you to stop looking for jobs, He does not tell you to stop moving spiritually. He tells you to stop moving out of fear. What you must do now requires discipline, honesty, and trust. This is where many people struggle because stillness feels unfamiliar when you were trained to chase. The first thing you must do is rest without guilt. I know that sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest instructions God gives chosen ones. You were conditioned to believe that rest must be earned, that peace is a reward for productivity. God is undoing that lie. Rest is not laziness. Rest is alignment. When you rest intentionally, you allow your nervous system to settle, your thoughts to clear, and your spirit to become sensitive again. Exhaustion dulls discernment. God wants you sharp, not drained. Rest does not mean scrolling endlessly or numbing yourself with distractions. It means creating quiet. It means stepping away from constant consumption. Silence is uncomfortable at first because it reveals what you've been avoiding. But in silence, God speaks. Not always with words. Sometimes with clarity. Sometimes with conviction. Sometimes with peace that makes no sense. The second thing you must do is listen more than you plan. Job hunting trains you to constantly project yourself into the future. Where will I be? How will I survive? What if this doesn't work? God is calling you back into the present. Divine direction is received, not constructed. Spend time asking better questions instead of forcing answers. God, what are you teaching me right now? God, what do you want my attention on today? Stay there. Listening also means paying attention to what keeps resurfacing in your heart. Not fleeting ideas, patterns, themes, burdens, skills you return to even when no one is watching. Divine instruction often repeats itself gently until you acknowledge it. Write things down, not to control them, but to honor them. The third thing you must do is detach from urgency. Urgency is often mistaken for responsibility, but most urgency is fear wearing a mask. Fear of running out, fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing others. God does not lead through pressure. He leads through peace. That does not mean everything feels easy. It means clarity does not shout. If something requires you to betray your peace to pursue it, pause. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means trust. You do what you are instructed to do today without obsessing over tomorrow. God gives daily bread, not lifetime supply up front. Obsession with outcomes blocks obedience in the present. Next, you must strengthen your spiritual discipline. This season requires structure, but not the kind a job gives you. You must become internally governed. Set times for prayer, for reflection, for learning, for movement. Without discipline, stillness becomes stagnation. God is watching how you steward freedom. Freedom reveals character faster than restriction. Spiritual discipline also means guarding your input, what you watch, what you listen to, who you allow to influence your thinking. Not everyone deserves access to you right now. Some voices create anxiety. Some create doubt. Some push you back into fear-based thinking. Distance is not rejection, it is wisdom. Another thing you must do is build quietly. This is where many chosen ones get impatient. You want visible progress, external confirmation, applause. God is calling you to prepare without announcing. Learn skills, refine ideas, develop consistency. Study, practice, create, not for validation, but for readiness. Divine work often grows in private before it ever becomes public. Do not underestimate small, faithful steps. Consistency attracts clarity. You do not need to see the full picture. You need to be obedient to the next instruction. God reveals in stages to protect you from overwhelm and pride. You must also heal intentionally. This season is an invitation to address wounds you avoided because you were busy. Rejection, comparison, fear of failure, fear of success, old disappointments. God cannot build something new on unhealed foundations. What you suppress now will resurface later under pressure. Deal with it now, gently and honestly. Healing may require uncomfortable honesty. Forgiveness, letting go of narratives that kept you stuck. Releasing resentment towards systems, people, or even yourself. Healing is not weakness. It is preparation. Another crucial action is simplifying your life. Complexity creates noise. Reduce unnecessary commitments. Reduce distractions. Reduce clutter, both physical and mental. God often simplifies before he multiplies. You cannot carry new assignments while holding on to old baggage. You must also practice obedience in small things. Many chosen ones want big assignments but resist small instructions. God watches faithfulness in the mundane. If he nudges you to adjust your routine, do it. If he calls you to rest, rest. If he prompts you to study something, study it. Obedience sharpens discernment. Discernment unlocks direction. Do not confuse obedience with passivity. You are not waiting for lightning from heaven. You are paying attention. You are responding. You are aligning. Another important action is redefining provision. Provision does not always come through jobs. Sometimes it comes through people. Sometimes through ideas. Sometimes through unexpected opportunities. Sometimes through reduction of needs. God is creative. He is not limited to one channel. When you release control over how provision must arrive, you allow God to move freely. You must also resist comparison aggressively. Comparison will poison this season faster than anything else. Other people's timelines are irrelevant. You are not late. You are not behind. You are assigned. Assigned lives do not look like average lives. Stop measuring yourself against people who are not carrying what you are carrying. Lastly, you must trust without needing reassurance. This is the hardest one. Trusting God when there is no visible evidence, no applause, no confirmation from others, just a quiet knowing. That is mature faith. That is the faith divine work requires. Let me say this clearly and calmly. You are not wasting time. You are not falling apart. You are not being irresponsible. You are being repositioned. And repositioning requires cooperation. If you do these things, not perfectly but faithfully, clarity will come, direction will sharpen, provision will align, but it will happen in God's order, not panic's timeline. Stay grounded, stay obedient, stay present. This season is not about chasing, it is about becoming aligned enough to be sent. And one more thing you must do in this season is learn how to wait without complaining. Complaining may feel like release, but spiritually it creates resistance. It keeps your focus on what is missing instead of what is forming. God listens closely to how you speak during pauses, not because he is easily offended, but because words reveal trust. Gratitude in waiting strengthens your spiritual posture. Even simple gratitude. Thank you for today. Thank you for clarity. Thank you for protection. I cannot yet see. You must also protect your energy fiercely. Not everyone deserves explanations about your season. Some people will project their fears onto you. They will call your obedience irresponsibility. They will measure your life with their limitations. Silence is sometimes wisdom. You do not need approval to obey God. Pay attention to how your body responds to peace. As you slow down, you may notice tension releasing, sleep improving, breathing deepening. That is alignment restoring itself. God cares about your whole being, not just your output. Another quiet action is preparing your environment. Make space for what is coming. Organize, clean, simplify. Physical order often mirrors internal readiness. God is practical. He prepares vessels before pouring. Finally, practice surrender daily, not once. Each day brings new temptations to control outcomes. Each day requires fresh trust. Surrender is not resignation. It is cooperation with divine wisdom. Chosen one, do not rush this season away. Honor it. Because the way you walk through this pause determines how you will walk into what comes next. Warning: what happens if you ignore this message? Chosen one, I need you to hear this part with sobriety, not fear. This is not a threat. This is a warning rooted in love. God does not warn to intimidate. He warns to protect. And when a warning is ignored, the consequences are rarely immediate, but they are always accumulative. Small misalignments compound over time. If you ignore this message and continue chasing jobs out of fear, urgency, or comparison, the first thing that will happen is internal erosion. You will feel it quietly. A dulling of peace, a constant low-level anxiety, a sense that you are always running but never arriving. Your spirit will begin to feel tired even when your body is rested. That is the cost of disobedience for a chosen one. Not catastrophe, but slow draining. When chosen ones operate outside of alignment, they do not fail loudly. They fade slowly. Passion turns into obligation. Clarity turns into confusion. Prayer turns mechanical. You still function, but you are no longer fully alive. God allows this discomfort not to punish you, but to signal that something is wrong. But if you keep overriding those signals, numbness sets in. Another consequence is delay, not cancellation. Delay. God does not revoke callings easily, but he will pause advancement when obedience is compromised. You may still make money. You may still progress on paper, but momentum will feel heavy. Everything will require extra effort. Doors will open, but fulfillment will not follow. That is not success. That is misalignment wearing a mask. Ignoring this message can also lead to compromise. When pressure builds and peace is absent, you begin justifying choices you once resisted. You tolerate environments that drain you. You silence convictions to keep stability. You tell yourself it's temporary, but temporary has a way of becoming permanent. And over time, your discernment weakens. What once felt wrong starts to feel normal. That is dangerous for someone with spiritual sensitivity. Another outcome is spiritual exhaustion. Not the kind that sleep fixes, the kind that comes from constantly resisting God's direction. Resistance requires energy. Obedience releases it. Many chosen ones are tired, not because they are doing too much, but because they are fighting divine instruction internally. That inner conflict wears you down. You may also experience confusion in hearing God, not because God stops speaking, but because your spirit becomes cluttered. When you ignore clear instruction, discernment dulls. You begin second-guessing nudges, overthinking decisions, asking for signs you already received. Confusion is often the result of partial obedience. There is also the risk of missed timing. Some doors only open in specific seasons. If you are distracted chasing something God told you to stop pursuing, you may not recognize the door when it appears. Divine opportunities do not always announce themselves loudly. They require attentiveness. And attentiveness cannot coexist with panic. Let me be clear. God will still love you. He will still cover you. But the path becomes harder when you insist on carrying what he asked you to put down. Grace does not remove consequences. It helps you endure them. Another serious outcome is emotional bitterness. When effort does not match fulfillment, resentment grows. You may begin resenting systems, people, even God. That bitterness is subtle at first. Sarcasm, cynicism, detachment. Over time, it hardens your heart. And a hardened heart cannot hear clearly. Ignoring this message can also affect your future capacity. Some experiences shape you in ways that limit your openness later. Trauma, burnout, disillusionment. God wants to spare you from those scars. He wants to build you, not repair you later. But protection requires cooperation. And here is something most people do not talk about. When chosen ones ignore divine pauses, they often become spiritually loud but internally empty. They talk about faith but live in fear. They advise others but ignore instruction themselves. That hypocrisy does not come from malice. It comes from exhaustion. God is serious because he sees the long view. He sees how one misaligned season can affect years of progress. He sees how the wrong environment can distort your identity. He sees how survival mode can silence calling. This warning is not about punishment. It is about prevention. God is saying, do not make this harder than it needs to be. Do not carry what I have already removed. Do not chase what I have already blocked. You are not being tested to see if you will fail. You are being invited to trust. Ignoring this message does not mean God leaves you. It means the journey becomes heavier. So take this warning seriously, not anxiously. Let it sober you. Let it ground you. Let it remind you that obedience is not restriction. It is protection, and protection is love in action. Conclusion: rest, trust, and receive. Chosen one, let me leave you with peace, not pressure. Everything you heard today was not meant to rush you. It was meant to settle you. God is not asking you to figure everything out. He is asking you to rest, trust, and receive. You have been carrying weight that was never yours to carry. And now God is gently but firmly asking you to put it down. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not failing. You are being led. When God tells you to stop, it is never to deprive you. It is to protect you from paths that would drain you and delay you. What feels like a pause is actually divine positioning. You are being aligned for something that requires clarity, peace, and obedience. Do not let fear talk you out of what God is doing. Fear is loud, but it is not wise. Trust is quiet, but it is powerful. You do not need to see the whole road. You only need to take the next obedient step. God will handle the rest. Take a breath. Let your shoulders drop. You are safe in God's hands. What is meant for you will not pass you. What God has prepared for you cannot be taken by anyone else. And what He is doing in you right now will soon make sense. Before you go, chosen ones, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones who need this confirmation. And comment 777 in the comments as a declaration that you trust God's timing and are aligned with His will. Rest now, trust deeply, and be ready to receive.